Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Ag-cademy session. Tonight, we'll be continuing our discussion on food safety, this time focusing specifically on how to implement food safety practices on the farm. Last session, we explored the principles that guide food safety, and this evening we'll take it a step further by looking at practical ways to apply those principles in our daily farming operations. Let us not forget that food safety starts right at the source of food production, from soil and water management to handling produce, maintaining clean equipment, and ensuring good worker hygiene. Every step plays a vital role in delivering safe, high quality food to consumers. By putting these practices into action, we help to build trust in our local food system and protect both farmers and consumers alike. We are pleased to have with us once again Ms. Theodora Morel, who did an excellent job in our previous session. She'll be guiding us through the process of turning knowledge into practice, sharing tips, experiences, and real-life examples of how farms can meet food safety standards effectively. Let's give a warm welcome to Ms. Morel as she leads us into this important discussion on implementing food safety practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Latoya. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to today's presentation. I hope you guys, when you went home or when you went to work today, you looked at your food safety from a different lens. And you looked at when you went to the cafeteria or when you went to your refrigerator, you looked at it differently. So that's part of the awareness and part of the culture we are trying to build at Helen's Daughters. So today, like Latoya said, we will take those learnings. So you take it from, make it very personal at home, understand the basics, the microorganisms. Why are you doing things? It's always important to know the why. When you're teaching, when you're practicing, understanding the why gives you a foundation for what's happening. So I think we had voluntold, was it Teresa, to do a quick summary of yesterday's 2 or 3 major points of learning from yesterday's presentation. Was it Teresa Latoya? I think it was Teresa. Sorry if I got the name wrong.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. It's
Is that
Teresa.
Teresa?
You're right. Yes.
Hi. Thank you for being voluntold, for agreeing to be voluntold.
Imagine that they voluntold me.
You got this.
Okay. Okay. So I can start?
Yeah, you can start.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Last week our topic was and is the principle of food safety. And I know the meaning of principle, but I went and looked it up just for us. The meaning of principle is the fundamental truth or proposition that serves as the foundation for a system of belief or behaviors for a chain of reasoning. Now, food safety, we did food safety last on Tuesday, and we understood why products have been removed or been recalled. The product recall is a process of removing or correcting products from the market because they are unsafe, defective, or don't meet the regulation. And so that's why they have been recalled. This can also be a voluntary action by the company or a mandatory order from the government agency like the AFD, and the goal is to prevent consumers harm. We also learn of the key topics that summarize the principle of food safety. and we had food safety culture, foodborne illnesses and microorganisms, kitchen and personal hygiene, and we also had touched a little on the food and the farm food safety, which I think today we're going to have more about it. And with the food culture, I understood that it's a shared value and behavior within an organization that prioritize making food safe, and it is a commitment from everyone, from leadership to employee, to in every role, to consistently follow safe procedures or practices that can and be accountable for food safety. Now, I believe that a strong food culture goes way beyond compliance. It means that food safety is and should be a fundamental part of our daily operations, and it's considered as important as any other business goal. So you want any other business to be successful. So food and safety is supposed to be our goal, to make sure that the consumers are safe when they buy the product from us, or whatever we prepared, so they can be safe. So it's our we're supposed to have that as high number one on our list. So we, according to what I understood, that's what I learned. They also have the basic principle of food safety is to be clean, separate, cook, and chill. And this involves washing hands and surfaces after being used, keeping raw and cooked food separate to avoid cross contamination, and also refrigerate perishable food promptly. The foodborne disease microorganism, it was, okay, let me give a little bit on it. Foodborne illness and microorganisms or food poisoning is an illness from eating contaminated food or drink caused by microscopic organisms like bacteria, viruses, parasites, and we learned that some illnesses are caused by toxins from these microorganisms, or by chemicals in the food. Some symptoms include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and stomach pains, and can lead to more serious health problems, including death. And we also touch on the importance of kitchen and personal hygiene. It is to prevent the spread of harmful bacteria, viruses, and other contaminants that can cause foodborne illnesses. Good personal hygiene, such as washing of hands, cleaning, sanitizing surfaces and equipment, is critical for protecting public health and maintaining consumer confidence. A person's body can also present harmful bacteria and viruses, and touching one's face, nose, hair, or clothes, and then touching the food can be transferred. So for food handlers, cleanliness, including clean uniforms and good grooming, instill confidence in our customers. So when they come to our place and they see the place looking clean, we are looking sharp, it gives them that confidence so that they can safely sit down and eat our food, or safely buy the things that we're selling. And I also add here, for those of us that cook at home and we go out to sell, our home is supposed to be clean. The place where you cooking your food is supposed to be clean every weekend. We do the normal little cleaning, the washing up of the dishes and the thing, but it's supposed to be clean every weekend. But for the home, every 6 months, your home is supposed to have a general cleaning. And sometimes your children get sick, and we ourselves get sick, and we never realize our homes have not been clean. So for a year, you're supposed to do general cleaning twice a year. Every 6 months, a general cleaning is supposed to be done. Okay, guys, and all that help keep the food that we prepare in our homes to go out there and sell healthy. It also helps to prevent foodborne. I'm okay. I can stop?
Yeah, you can.
But I still
I
have a
just
little more.
want to give you a huge round of applause for
Yeah.
a fantastic summary. I
I
couldn't have
still have a
asked
little
for
bit. I
better.
still have a little bit,
Okay, so go ahead. Take 2
Okay.
minutes to finish.
Okay. To help prevent foodborne illnesses, we can by using our tools to separate raw food. So in our kitchen, we're supposed to or wherever we are, whatever our business is, we're supposed to separate raw and cooked foods, clean and sanitize surfaces and utensils, and ensure food is cooked to the correct internal temperature. We separate cutting boards. Okay, you're supposed to also use separate cutting boards, and there are different color coding for cutting board apart from the wood. Wood don't have no color, but for the plastic cutting board, there are different colors. And I have here for the red, it is for raw meat and poultry, for blue, for fish and seafoods, for the green one, for fruits and vegetables and salad, white for dairy and bakery, yellow for cooked meat, brown for root vegetable, like when you just take your dashing and your thing outside, you want to cut it, you want to rest it there before you wash it, you press it on the brown, so we know that food is not yet washed and whatever. And for the purple would be for the you use only the food that don't have not something for allergens, for allergy, for things, for people that have allergy, use that particular board. So no nut food can come on that board. Nothing that people are allergic to can come on that board. So it is important that we use those things. And at the end of it all, our chopping boards, like the one for the meat, chopping boards normally last 1 to 5 years, but for the meat one, to me, every 5 months you can change it, or every year you can change it, because while we cut, the cuts we give it, bacteria grows in those little grooves, and it may not, even though you sanitize, it may not die. So you can change the meat board every end of year or every thing. And so for me, I see here in everything that was said, the main thing is keep your hand washed and dry, sanitize. And somebody spoke about bleach, and it is asking us that we put 1 tablespoon to a 2 gallon of water. To a gallon. A gallon is the big bottle of bleach. You put 1 tablespoon in it, and that's good. Nothing going to kill you. So don't be afraid to use your bleach. Use your bleach and use your bleach. Thank you.
Well done. Well done.
Yes, exceptionally well done. Everybody, a round of applause, or use your computer to say thank you to Teresa for
You're
a
welcome.
very detailed summary. Just one thing to add, Teresa, and everybody else, on the color coding, the ones that she mentioned are the ones that's the standard. However, if you are fortunate enough to use color coding, the key is to ensure that the colors that you have a map for them, right? So
Yeah.
if you can't get the colors, that's the basic. You can use a color that's available to you, but make sure you communicate what that color stands for if you're not using the standard colors, okay? But good summary, Teresa.
Thank you.
Not good, great.
Mm.
Thank you. All right, so let's start. Today, I was able to find for us some information on Caribbean recalls. Oh. And I spoke to the Caribbean Agriculture, Health and Food Safety Agency, and they sent me a list of different recalls. They had on the spreadsheet about 20 or so list of recalls from across the years. But somebody had asked, how are the Caribbean being notified when we have a recall based in the US? And most of the recalls that's on that list came from the US. The note was sent to the government agency. Now the question lies is how well distributed or communicated and in a timely fashion that this message is going out to the public. So I gave Latoya a list of recalls that was posted. One of them, and this page also here will give you, if you click on it, when you get the presentation, you'll see the detail. There was one specific one, and it was from Grace, Grace Foods from Jamaica. And they had a recall of swollen cans. If you remember yesterday, I said, if you go to the store and you see any cans with bulging bottoms or swollen, do not touch it, do not eat it, do not taste it, because it could be botulism, and botulism could be very deadly. So Grace's recall, it was good that they put it out there. Unfortunately, it was misleading because when you look at that recall, it said for potential spoilage. It didn't emphasize that it could be Clostridium botulism from canning. So take a look at that when you guys have a chance. It will give you some more details on it.
And the
And
file has been placed in the chat, so you can look at it a little later.
yeah. Unfortunately, it's not easy to find those information. Like you said, you can't easily Google it because they don't have the resources or the technology. In Trinidad, I think, and Jamaica were the two places that had a more developed system. The rest of the countries, maybe not so much. And Barbados had some too. All right. So let's go into the meat of the topic. So I'm not going to do test your knowledge because Teresa has already done such a nice summary of what we learned yesterday, but I will leave that on there. So when you get a chance, you can click on it. You can use it for your classroom. You can use it for your students as a way to promote food safety for your business, for home, or for school. So from a time standpoint, because we have a lot to cover, I will skip that. If we have time, we'll come back to it. So implementing food safety practices, what to expect. We're going to talk about GAP, which is good agricultural practices. I like to call it common sense. Because when you look at it, and even everything, food safety is really common sense. We're also going to touch a little bit about HACCP. And the reason I put HACCP on there because in the past, we have people who do agro-processing, not just farming. And where you use GAP for farming, HACCP is the version of GAP that you use for processing. We won't talk so much about the Farm Food Safety Plan this time, but we will put it in your chat. We will touch organic versus natural, genetically modified organism, GMO, and we'll talk about gluten. Now, I know everybody thinks in the Caribbean we have organic. Well, we'll talk about that and make sure that you understand what it means. And if time permitting, we will talk a little bit about AI on food safety in agriculture. If not, I have a video in the back. You guys can watch it on your own. Your learning objectives is awareness of key elements of GAP, awareness of HACCP principles of Farm Food Safety Plan, and then you can do a self-assessment of where you are on your food safety journey. Based on everything you learned, you'll be able to go back and do an assessment. So what is GAP? And I'm sure a number of you have heard of GAP, and it's Good Agricultural Practices, or GAP. You have good manufacturing practices. Now that's different from good agricultural practices. Good manufacturing practices, again, is used in processing, not on farming. GAP is used for farming. It's a voluntary audit that verifies that fruits and vegetables are produced, packed, handled, and stored safely as possible. Now, in the Caribbean, GAP is not strictly enforced. It's up to farmers to practice the GAP principles. Now, the big companies like Grace Food in Jamaica, who wants to sell food in the US, will get GAP audits. But the small farmers, the small processors in the Caribbean are not enforcing GAP. The government is not, I'm not aware of the majority of the government that have GAP audits. The people that have GAP audits, they use consultant to get the GAP audits in, and it's not an easy thing to pass, to get a GAP certification. Okay? Today we'll talk about produce safety. Now, produce safety, we'll focus mostly on produce safety because when we come to farming, that's from a microbial food safety standpoint, that's the highest risk. Versus the dashings and the yams and the products that is going to get cooked. From a food safety standpoint, those products are very low risk. However, they are higher risk for chemical and residual. The produce is risk for microbial. So like we said, many fruits and vegetables have rough surfaces and stem scars that provide places for the microorganism to hide. And the reason why this is such a critical step, and you have so many recalls on it, it's because it does not have what we call a kill step. And a kill step is a cooking step. In some cases, they use steam. In some cases, you have preservatives, different kinds of hurdles to prevent you from getting sick. Produce don't have that. The majority of your produce, fruits and vegetables, are consumed raw. Your lettuce, your spinach, all of those are raw. And if you look at the texture of the products, you can rinse out the majority of the dirt. But like I said yesterday, it is very, very difficult to get rid of the microorganism. So prevention is key. The focus on food safety is how do you prevent? Prevention, 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 because once it's there, it's difficult to remove. The main source of the contamination for produce, and when you think about your farms, whether it's a backyard garden or you have a bigger farm or you go to somebody else's farm, again, it's handling by people. Now, in the US, we have a lot of farming for produce, lettuce, football-sized field of farming. It's used mostly immigrants. They get up very, very early in the morning. They go out to the farms. The facilities for them to use the bathroom and to hand wash is so far apart that they don't get to go to it. So what they do, they would use the fields to do their number ones and their number twos, and they don't have any hand washing. In addition, they are transporting it to a packing facility, which is very congested. And then you are doing some kind of washing, but the risk for the contamination is very high from the people, from the animals, and from the transportation, as well as the packing area. Like I said, animals, not even, they're not directly on the field. If you have a farm, make sure that above the farm, you don't have runoff water. There was a major recall 2 years ago where millions and millions pounds of lettuce was recalled because that farm in California had a ranch right above it, and the runoff water was getting into that field and contaminated the fields. We talk about soil amendments containing untreated manure. So we use manure a lot, but treating untreated manure, basically, remember I said E. coli is another word for E. coli can be poop. And what is manure? So where we grew up, or manure is essential. But putting raw manure can do a couple of things. It can burn the produce, or also it can spread contamination. Irrigation water, if you're using untreated water to irrigate your vegetables, you're basically spraying it with bacteria. One second. Yeah. And then your packing facility, like I talked about. So let's talk about gap before planting. And again, gap is good agricultural practices. So I'll say gap instead of saying good agricultural practices. So first, when you are going to do your farm, whether it's your backyard garden or you have a piece of land where you're farming, you should do a self-assessment, right? You need to make sure that animals are not grazing on that farm, that you're not storing manure in that area. So if you do this risk, if significant risk is identified, do not use without corrective action to manage that risk. And documentation when you get to that level or even at home is so important. There is a saying in the food safety world that says, "In God we trust, everybody else show paper." So even if I come and examine your plant and you say, "Oh yeah, yesterday I did this," if you cannot show the auditor or the regulator a document that's dated and signed that that practice was conducted, it's as well that you did not do it. So in God we trust, everybody else show paper. So first you have to analyze your soil, understand what you're putting in there. Then you have to go, while you're planting it, do not apply the raw manure to the vegetables or crop. Now, as a best practice, you get treated manure. They have bird pellets, or you can store the manure someplace where you dry it out at a certain temperature, but not use that raw manure. Keep the animals away, even the cats and the dogs. You have to keep those away from your farm. Again, like I said, it's common sense. Your water has to be cleaned. I know water is a scarcity, but especially for your produce that is not going to be washed or cooked, sorry. Irrigation water needs to be clean. And then we'll talk a little bit more about irrigation. And then if you are going to irrigate, bottom versus overhead irrigation is better because you're protecting the part of the food or the produce that's going to be consumed raw. And I put an example of sticking tomatoes and vegetables to protect it from touching the ground if possible. Soil amendments, we're talking about any chemical or biological or physical material that you will add to the soil to improve the chemical or physical condition of the soil to retain water. Pit moss, compost, mulch. Now, mulch is good from a microbial standpoint because it's dry, it's wood, it's not growing bacteria. Compost, is very tricky because what you're doing with compost is adding organic material, and you need that organic material to be properly treated and decompose so you're not creating additional problem for your food. Some soil amendments that's biological in nature. We talked about compost. We talked about uncured compost. Now, eggshell is an interesting one because the eggshell has high calcium level. But remember, raw eggs has salmonella in it. Remember, we talked about eggs and salmonella. So if you are going to use eggshell for calcium, that eggshell, if you use cooked eggs and the shell, that's fine. But if it's raw egg, you need to let it dry out or treat it before you use it on your fresh produce. Here, I give you an example of types of soil amendments that you can use. We said the cured compost. So if you have compost, don't use it raw. Let it sit down and decompose, put it in a bucket somewhere, and then use it. Chicken manure, because that's been treated, and then regular cow manure. You can either buy it treated or you can put it to dry in the sun. And if you are going to dry it yourself, make sure you put that manure away from the plant so you're not creating cross-contamination through your food or through animals. And another one is bone meal. Some best practices: keep animals and tools used for untreated separate, or color code like we talked about. So the color code for your is not only for your cutting board, but in your factory, in your farms, you should also practice color coding. So what are you using for raw? What is finished? What is ready to eat? What is harvest versus post-harvest? So keeping a color coding is also useful in here. And then managing your traffic flow. We just talked about not going from the raw manure onto your fields or into your manufacturing facility if you have one. Again, washing your hands, keeping the animals away. Your tools, like in your house, the tools has to be managed in a way to not cross-contaminate it. So basically, don't use the tool, the shovel that you use for the manure to carry food from there to the other side. Or don't use the same barrow or the container, the wheelbarrow or the container that we move raw food to the other side of the produce. So again, basic common sense. Making sure your workers who are handling the produce, they are healthy. Now I'll talk a little bit about gloves. Gloves can be a nightmare if not used properly. And you guys have seen people using gloves in different places. The glove is not there to protect your hands. The glove is supposed to be used to prevent cross-contamination. So if you are using gloves on the farm, you should be changing your gloves between operations. So if you use gloves to do the raw side of the manure and you have to go back and go to the ready-to-eat side, make sure you change the gloves so you're not cross-contaminating it. Some people ask me if it's okay if you can wash the gloves in between. You can. It's better than not washing it, and I know it's expensive to get those disposable gloves, but if you decide to wash your hands with the gloves, you have to use a sanitizer or soap and water. Water by itself will not get rid of the bacteria. You have to use a sanitizer. So let me take a break for now and just see if there's any questions, Latoya. I've been giving you some information, some technical stuff. So is there any questions before we go forward?
Well, yes, we do, but I'd like to take some of those from last week that we did not get to address, if that's okay. So I'll
Sure,
be
go
mixing
ahead.
them in between.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one, okay, this is something about Massey. So I think we have exhausted Massey last session. So the next one, Melinda would like to know, can bleach kill the bacteria from the meat? Because not washing meat is a huge no for me.
Yes, I know it's a huge no. Unfortunately, the bleach cannot kill the bacteria because you'd have to put too much bleach on it and the food will not be effective. So it's about the load. So the meat has a lot of bacteria, not a little bit that's on your hand. It's a lot. And the amount of bleach you would need to put in there would be too much. It would spoil the food. That's
Oh,
why you cannot use the bleach.
yeah. And keeping on the cleaning of chicken, Lizette is wondering if vinegar or lime can prevent the spread of bacteria.
So, like I said yesterday, vinegar can be used. However, it's not as effective. So, if you use a teaspoon of chlorine into a gallon of water, you don't smell it, you don't taste it. That has a 99% efficacy. That means it will kill 99.9. If you use vinegar, it goes from 70 to 80% of efficacy, sorry. So yes, you can use it, but it's not as effective.
Okay,
Same
thank
thing
you.
with the lime.
We
So
will
like I
now,
said, if you use the raw chicken, and because I know nobody wants to use unwashed chicken because it's our culture, but if you are going to wash your chicken, use precaution. Do not use running water. Do not put it close to, do not wash it in the sink because it's going to be spreading and you won't be able to see where it spread. So use precaution if you want to wash your chicken or your turkey or your meat.
thank you. Every year, that's a topic for discussion.
Yes.
Now we have now to the question and answer segment. We have two participants inquiring what is bone meal.
So bone meal is a form of it's like the chicken meal, but you use bone meat and it's processed. So it's a type of compost, but it's crushed like a powder. They tell me they don't have it in the Caribbean. But most people find the chicken pellets.
Mhm. All right, thank you. Now we'll go to the participants with their hands up. So Shanion McPherson, you may unmute your mic. McPherson. Okay, I think okay, so I'll go back to the question and answer area. Alita would like to know, just need some clarification. Is it white for baked good and yellow for poultry and the brown for cooked meat? I guess she's querying the cutting boards.
All right. So, like I said, there is a traditional or practice. So you use white for ready to eat, red for raw, yellow for different things. But there is nothing that say you must use it. Whatever you choose to use, make sure it is labeled and communicated so everybody knows what it is. Now, universally, when you have red is danger, so it's used for raw. White, typically, it's used for ready to eat. of fruits and vegetables. And yellow and orange and purple for allergen, but there's nothing that says those are what you have to use. It's just an example.
Thank you. The chat.
Just let me
Just
ask one more
one.
question.
Mhm.
The other thing, again, it's a culture on the color coding. So if you have multiple facilities, if you choose a color code, the important thing is you use the color code across so you don't confuse people. If you decide white is gonna be for ready to eat or for produce, then across the board use white. Don't use white one place for one thing and red for the other, because that is where you get cross-contamination and confusion. Okay?
Yep, thank you. Additional questions, please feel free for comments. You can also put them inside of the chat. Does washing your produce with apple vinegar help to get rid of pathogens?
Again, we had that question before. It will knock off some of it, not all of it. It's effective to 70 to 80% versus a more harsh one like bleach. And then when I hear bleach, I'm not talking about you smelling. You don't even taste it or smell it. It's a teaspoonful in a gallon of water. But
Thanks.
I understand we don't want chemicals. So if you use apple cider vinegar, understand it will not take everything off on the fruit, but it has some level of effectiveness.
Thank you. Now the chat.
Okay, so we can go ahead.
One more. Okay, I'll give one more question from the chat and then we can continue.
Okay.
Well, this would actually be two, but it's related to the same topic. How is manure treated? And how long does manure take to decompose? And is it better to use after that time?
Good question. Now, the length of, first of all, how the manure is treated. If you buy commercial manure, it's basically baked. They will put it in an oven where they heat it. It's heated and dried. Now, if you do it yourself, and it also it's the layer and the depth. So there's no specific time. It's based on the thickness, the layer, and what you're using. And the other one, if you're using it by yourself and you have a pile of manure and you let it dry, you have to turn it over, because if you look at the surface will be dry. You see people with pile of manure. That one is really, really, really hard to work with because the inside will stay and ferment and the outside will be dry. So you have to make sure you keep turning it. So there is example, but again, a lot of it depends on the thickness, the layers, and where it is. I can find some guidelines if there is some guidelines that I could share for you later. I'm sure there is, but I don't have it with me at this time. Okay. Hello?
Okay, thank you. Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay.
So I guess we can continue with the presentation and then we'll take any additional questions during the next break.
Okay. Thank you, Latoya. So let's look at clean water, know your water source. Now, rainwater. Who believes rainwater is the best water for us to use? Just hands up, yes. Because it's manner, it's coming. I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. So whereas rainwater is a good source of water, now listen carefully and don't go and say Theodora said don't use rainwater. If you are going to use rainwater, so if you collect rainwater, for example, from a catchment from your roof, that is not a good practice. You have to make sure that the water is filtered. Because when you think about water coming from the roof, it's touching a surface that has bird poop on it and everything else on that surface. And when you wash the water out and you collect it, then all that contamination will be there. And especially if you're storing it, then it's a good growth medium. So if the rain is falling directly on the fruit, it's fine. But if you're gonna hold or catch the rain from a roof or from other surfaces before you use it, again, either use a filter or use some kind of disinfectant in the waters. And I'm gonna use the chlorine. I know you guys don't like that, but that's effective. Or a vinegar amount. You'll have to use more vinegar and then we have maybe some taste. But if you are going to use it on your produce, that is, not on your vegetables that you're gonna cook, but the produce version of it, the lettuce, the cucumbers, and those type of produce, the fruits, then if you use rainwater, make sure that you are filtering it if it's coming from the surface of the roof or some other catchment. River water, again, understand the source of the water, where it's coming from, because river water can be contaminated by animals, by people. So if you use river water, use them mostly on your dashing, your ground provisions, and try to minimize the use on your vegetables or use a filter. Now, municipal water, the pipe water, this is supposed to be the most effective one because the city has already treated the water. And unless you recontaminate it again from the source of the city into your garden, those are typically very safe because the city has already treated them. So why is water a food safety risk? We know that water can carry microorganisms from animals upstream. We talked about that earlier, from humans. And then what you do, it's a good source of growth as well for the bacteria. So if you use contaminated water on your vegetables, remember you cannot get rid of it because it's not a smooth surface. And then you will have contaminated vegetables. Now, the reason why we have such big recalls in the US on those bag lettuce, and I talked about that yesterday a little bit, is not only are we contaminating the vegetables, but we are chopping it up and mixing it up and adding, instead of having one head of lettuce contaminated, we'll have the whole batch contaminated. Production water, again, water that will touch the harvest, and that's the one you have to be very careful one. Example, irrigation water. Be very careful with that. So that's your water. The next one we're going to look at is during harvesting, cleaning and sanitizing. Remember I said if you clean, it's not enough. Cleaning alone will not get rid of bacteria. You have to clean and sanitize. And remember, documentation is key. So again, post-water harvest, water that's used after the harvesting, again, that is critical because that's the last time you're gonna get the food. So those water has to be clean. So on here, I'm gonna take a minute and just Latoya, a minute if people can identify some of the gaps in that picture. Just 2 minutes, and just type it or say it.
So if you'd like to speak, just raise your hand. I'll open your mic. You can type it in the chat.
Any takers? No? Take a look at the
Okay, we have one
gloves.
person. We have
Mhm.
one person. So Aneska.
I see one that the glove, one of the glove is open. Above a tear.
Yeah, the glove is torn. So in that case, it's not protecting her, the food, or anything. Very good observation.
We have one other individual, Queely.
The hair is not thoroughly covered.
Yes. The hair is not covered. Plus, the henna on the brown one,
Right.
the holes in it is too big because it's
To be
not.
correct.
Yeah, and she's just styling with a nice style over there, so the hairnet is not functional. And there's a few other things. Go ahead.
I'm also seeing somebody on the far end, like in a shorts or something of that nature. I don't know if that
Yes.
would be considered one of the,
Yes.
yeah, so.
Okay,
Okay.
Bernice. We have one more.
We can move on if we don't have any more. But take a look at it.
Oh,
The
yes, we
water is
do.
overflowing is another one.
So we have Bernice
Hi,
and
can you hear me?
Nerlin.
Yeah.
Yes, we are hearing you.
All right, so I can see
Hi.
a few things. Yes, the person just mentioned that the water looks like it's overflowing, so most likely it is splashing onto the floor
Mm-hmm.
and it is wetting the aprons and the clothes. The person with the black and the brown bonnet
Mm-hmm.
does not have an apron or a coverall.
Mm-hmm.
So most likely whatever chemical that they're using in that bin or that back is wetting the
Yeah.
skin. The gloves too, they look too short. So most likely the chemical is seeping into the glove and being absorbed by the skin.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's what I'm
Good.
seeing.
All
In the
right,
far
great. So
in the back of the picture there are other little items. But you know
yeah,
like
there's
there
a
are it's
lot
just
going on
so
in there. First, it's too
yes,
crowded,
it's
so you
just
can't
everything
clean
is
it. All right, that's an example, and you guys are seeing that as you do your process. Remember stuff like that. So ice, let's not forget ice. We use ice to put into a lot of things in our drinks. So the number one obvious thing, if you're gonna use ice to freeze or to keep your seafood and other stuff fresh, do not use the same ice for your vegetables, for your product. But the most important one, and I'll give you an example of myself, is for some reason, I don't know why, but the Mexico water source is so badly contaminated that when you travel to Mexico, they tell you not to use the water from the pipe, or when you take a shower, don't open your mouth, don't brush your teeth with the water. And so ice, we were out and I normally drink a bottle, like a Corona or something, but that time I had a cocktail with ice in it. And by the time I remembered the ice was there, I had a 2-bucket disease. So the ice and how we use it, the ice preserves the microorganism. It doesn't kill it. It will preserve it. And when you put it in your drinks and you consume it, then you can have either an infection or an intoxication. Same thing if you use contaminated ice on your cut vegetables, you will have the same problem. So let's not forget about our ice and how we use it. Chemical hazard is another area we need to avoid mixing chemicals. So if you are going to use chemical and you have to use it for sanitizing or for whatever use, a lot of people will take the chemicals, even at home, and put it in another container. if you were to do that, make sure that you are labeling that container, if it's not the original container, and putting the date, the time on it, and expiration if there's one, because you can use it and put it in a different container that's not meant to be, and that's going to create a problem because somebody can come behind you and use it for something else. Do not mix chemicals. You'll hear at home, if you mix chlorine and ammonia, it forms ammonia gas, which can be deadly. So avoid mixing chemicals and make sure you dispose of the surplus to avoid contaminating the produce. And in God we trust. Let's keep records. Now, pesticides, I said about there's a list of approved pesticide for each island. Now, you have to go to the Bureau of Standards for you to find that list because each list is slightly different. And if you are going to sell food outside of your country, there's also a list of approved pesticide. And the levels are very, very low. So when they're testing, they look for microscopic amount. Your buildings and your structure, again, your building must be maintained to minimize the risk. Don't create a factory where you have problems. In my prior job, we used to send 2 people out to different parts of the country to work. And in one place where we sent somebody, they had no walls, no windows. They were outside. Unfortunately, we couldn't help them because they didn't have the infrastructure. So we end up helping them build a structure. So be careful, especially if you are going to use a packing house or if you're doing agro-processing. Your floor should be constructed to avoid harborage. Now, I'm going to say this, but even in the US, when we use small manufacturers and we go out, you will see the refrigerated foods, especially, they use those tiles. The tiles will crack and they'll use water on it. And that will be a major source of harborage for listeria example. Now, the other thing is don't forget to use your sense of smell, your eye, because we know when something is not good, we'll smell it. It's an indication there's something wrong. Although I said you cannot smell back pathogens, but if you have a harborage area, other things growing around it will cause a putrid smell. So use your smell. Don't ignore that. Here's another example, and I'm not going to take the time, but as you look at it by yourself, see the different things that's wrong with this. One, they're using crates, and there's nothing in between the crates. It's open to the environment. You have produce on there, a whole lot going on in there. So when you have a chance, take a look at yourself and see how many things you can see wrong in this picture. So, Latoya, do you want to take a question before I go to HACCP? We have a lot left to go, but
Okay, let's do that, please, because there is really a question here that I really want to ask.
okay.
Sylvia says, growing up as a child, I used to see my neighbors adding urine to the water to wet lettuce. The lettuce used to look really good, but is this really healthy?
Okay, so I don't know the answer to that, but I can think the reason why they were using the urine because it has urease in there. Now, I would not recommend using body fluid to get the urease into your food because think about it. How would you feel knowing that somebody or the farmer is using urine in your lettuce? The ick factor, the gross factor alone will tell you not to use it. But you can get urease as a nutritional, which is a big part of urine. And they might have some chemical benefits. I'm not sure. But me personally, the ick factor, the gross factor, I will say no.
Okay, fabulous. Okay, I
Ask
was
yourself
about
the question, how would I feel if I buy lettuce and I know the person used the urine? Plus, the person here can have all kinds of diseases and everything there. Okay?
and that was my very first time actually hearing that.
Yeah, I've never heard that, but you know what? We are very innovative.
True. Now I'm gonna do one more question, then we'll go ahead to HACCP.
Okay.
How is mayo used in food? Because I learned at school mayo was poisonous when placed in hot food. But a lot of restaurants add mayo in hot food, example, a fast food burger.
Okay, so mayo is a misnomer. So we all grow up and say mayo is sensitive and mayo can be poisonous or can cause foodborne illness. So mayo by itself, if used properly, it's safe. If you use mayo because you're using raw eggs in mayo and you use dairy, so basic, and you have fat in there, it causes, hold on 1 second. 1 second. Sorry, guys. Was getting some background noise. So the mayo in itself, if you use warm mayo or you put the mayo on, most of the time they put it on cold cuts, that doesn't help on raw food. So the mayo will cause bacteria to grow. But mayo by itself and kept refrigerated is not a problem. It's when it's temperature abused that it's a problem. And mostly when you think about where you're adding the mayo on cold cuts or other stuff, on lettuce and vegetables, it creates the too perfect condition if you let it stay out. But we all hear not to keep mayo out and mayo is bad. And there's some truth to that. If you use mayo, keep it cold. Okay?
Okay, yes,
Latoya?
thank you. So we can continue with the presentation. We'll now move on to HACCP.
Yeah. All right. So we'll take a different turn now. Now, we talked about gap in your factory. So I brought that in there for you to see how you can use food safety and how you can prevent contamination of your food, mostly the produce side, because the ground provisions, the risk is low, they're underground, and they are getting cooked. Now we're going to take HACCP for those of us who are doing agro processing or we have manufacturing step. HACCP is the equivalent of GAP on the farm. So if you're doing both agro processing or manufacturing, you want to know HACCP. And HACCP is Hazard and Analysis Critical Control Point. Why am I not forwarding? 1 second, I'm not able to advance. There we go. So HACCP is the global recognized program for manufacturing safe food. It started when they went up in space and they had to get food for the astronauts. General Mills was one of the companies that decided they were going to use HACCP to ensure that we kept the astronauts safe. And now it's used in manufacturing globally. So you have different types of HACCP. And again, it's a systematic approach to identify and evaluate the safety of your food. Now, the US has gone away from HACCP and they use a more holistic approach called a food safety plan. And it goes again from prevention. We will just stay with HACCP for now. It is not a standalone process. It covers all three types of hazard we talked about earlier: biological, chemical, physical. Hazard can be naturally occurring in food or a mistake during a processing and harvesting. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means. It focuses on prevention of a problem that could lead to foodborne illness. And you can apply it across the food chain. And like I said before, it's in the manufacturing setting. So HACCP requires a foundation. So if you think about your house, you need a foundation to put the house on. So for HACCP by itself, it's not going to work unless you have a foundation, because not everything goes into the HACCP plan. HACCP is only for the critical control points. But for that to work, you need a prerequisite program, and it's a range of programs that is necessary. So for example, sanitation, GMPs, those type of programs that you must have are the foundation for a good HACCP plan. So production equipment, chemical control, pest control, those are not critical, but they are considered the foundation of the HACCP plan. And if you ever done a HACCP plan, you will have a prerequisite program. Personal hygiene training, those are all prerequisite program, because if you have a failure on personal hygiene, it may lead to a recall or it may lead to a food safety incident, but not automatically. If you have a failure in your critical control point, for example, you have a time temperature for which you have to cook a food for it to be safe. If that time temperature fails, it will automatically lead to a food safety risk. That's the difference. So a critical control point failure will lead to a food safety risk. Prerequisite program failure may lead to a food safety risk, but not automatically. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. So here's the difference. Again, a different directly with food safety issues, indirectly, sorry, where a HACCP plan is solely food safety. So if you identify a critical control point, you have to have documentation and control. Any failure in that, you have to take action. So hazards, a glass from a light fixture. So a lot of us, when we have in the Caribbean, in our factories, we have overhead lights, we need it, but we don't have a shatterproof light shield. And most of those lights, when I've gone to some of the factories, the lights are over open food, finished food. And if you don't have something to prevent it, then that glass can end up in your finished food. So if you have a light, that's a critical control point. And the way you're going to control that is have a shatterproof light shield, or take that light away from the exposed food. Metal is another one, and in the US, you'll see a lot of metal recall because either the metal detector did not work or they did not have a metal detector or some way to determine that metal from the equipment. So you can have metal upon metal in that equipment. When we started doing HACCP, there was in a factory where we had, it was in California, and we were making pudding, dry pudding. And we had a screen to monitor foreign parts. And the operator was writing, there's a hole in the screen. He writes it, he documents it. Now, there was supposed to be a supervisor that goes and check, but that supervisor never checked. It ended up in one of the biggest recall for foreign material for that company, because by the time they found out and they went back, that whole screen was gone and it was in the food. So although the guy was doing what he was told to do, because he didn't understand the concept and his supervisor did not check, it ended up in a massive recall for the company. So the message here is not just document, but take action. So he even wrote, there's no more screen in his notes, but he never called a supervisor and he never did action. So even if you are documenting, you must either notify somebody or take action. Again, for HACCP, you need training, developing the plan. That's your steps. Assembly the HACCP team. So you cannot do a HACCP plan by yourself. You need to have a team. And most importantly, for the HACCP plan, you need to have somebody in food safety, a microbiologist or somebody who knows about food safety to be a consultant. If you don't have somebody on site, then you have to find somebody to help you. And so here are the HACCP principles: conduct the hazard, determine the critical control point, establish the limits, establish the monitoring procedures. Again, corrective action. If you have a HACCP plan, you must have a corrective action. And you need to verify your plan and establish record keeping. Now, I know this is a lot if it's the first time you're seeing HACCP. If you have a factory or if you are operating a factory and you need more help for your HACCP plan, Latoya or Kathleen, let them know and I will work with you as a bonus for being a Helen's Daughter member or a cohort as part of that training. If you reach out, I will be able to help you with putting together your plan. Not just for the HACCP, but anything we talked about. All right, so this is a quick overview of HACCP. It's not to make you HACCP expert, it's an awareness. But if you need more detail on HACCP planning, let me know. So Latoya, a quick one question before we go. I think we have some time, yeah? Are there any
Questions we
questions
have
or
here?
self-explanatory?
Okay, it seems that we are good for now. Hold one second. Okay, so one question, does washing the wheelbarrow or shovels in between using during work, does it reduce cross-contamination?
Definitely. So one of the things that we've done, because remember I said when we do those policies, they are designed for developed countries. Now, we don't have the resources. Maybe the small farmer can't buy one barrel for ready to eat, one barrel for finished, and we only have one barrel, right? In that case, if you cannot, you have to have a very rigorous program to clean, sanitize, and dry in between using the wheelbarrow for ready to eat versus not ready to eat. It is not a recommended practice, but understanding economical situations and small farmers, that's an acceptable practice, but it has to be so thoroughly and strictly monitored and tested in between if you have to do that. Okay? Can we move on?
Yes, we can. That's it for the questions for now.
Okay. So now we'll go into organic. And organic, probably not the way you know it. When I travel in the Caribbean, in Africa, everybody's food is organic. But true organic is more complicated than just labeling it organic because we didn't do this and we didn't do that. Organic certification, refers to a product made in line with certain standards throughout the production, handling, processing, and marketing stages. So anyone can use this label. It's not regulated. All natural. So this is for all natural, right? If you have all natural, anyone can use all natural. Marijuana is all natural. Mangoes are all natural. Everything is all natural. Ingredients from nature are considered natural, even though they are processed. High fructose corn syrup in some places is considered natural, and this is highly processed. There's no regulation on treatment of animals and what they are fed. So this, what if you call it natural, there's a big difference between natural and organic. Organic is regulated with strict requirements. You only use approved organic farming methods. You don't use GMO or genetically modified organism. No growth hormones, no antibiotics allowed. There's approved pesticide, organic pesticide, which there's a list, but it's limited. Livestock must be fed organically and treated humanely. So that, as you can see, all natural. And if you want to label your food organic, then you have to follow this. Now, I know in the Caribbean that it's not regulated and everybody can slap organic and there's no restriction. However, if you want to sell your product outside of your country, outside of the Caribbean, you must follow this process. So in organic, the crop, the pests, the weeds, they must be controlled primarily through management practices, including physical, mechanical, and biological control. That means you can't just spray Gramazone or whatever weed on it. Now, here's the kicker here, and here's why a lot of the Caribbean will not probably get to do standards. Because the land must be free. You must demonstrate that the land you are going to use to do your organic food, that it is at least 3 years free of prohibited substances. A lot of our farming land have been contaminated, especially if we were in the bananas phase. If you recall how much pesticide we use, and those stay in the ground for years and years and years. And those grounds are not approved for organic. And now this, I know it's difficult if you are trying to do organic in a small farm or anything like that, because you have to wait 3 years if you don't have virgin soil. Again, we say you use crop rotation, you use tillage and cultivation practices. As another one again, and I know a lot of us don't do that in the Caribbean, but if you are going to use the organic certification label, you must demonstrate that you use organic seeds and other planting stock. So you have to use special cultivated organic seeds for the food that you are making to be labeled organic. All right, questions?
Okay, so we do have one question so far. I'm surprised that we don't have more, given the organic and GMO.
We'll do
Stephanie
GMO a little
says,
bit.
Stephanie says, great presentation, very informative. I wanted to ask if parasites and vector would be considered as a biological hazards in food safety.
So parasites like amoeba and those can be considered, but mostly for water. The vector would be mostly viruses, and you will have that like in hepatitis A and those type of things. But Stephanie, you want to say a little more about that? So it sounds like you have a specific reason for asking. Can you unmute her if she has further discussion on that?
Okay, Stephanie, you may unmute your mic.
Hi, good night.
Hi, Stephanie.
Great presentation, very
Thank
informative.
you.
I'm enjoying the topic. I was just a bit concerned, like with regards to food handlers. You know, people who handle food, especially if it's food that's not cooked, because
Yep.
the human beings are hosts and we carry parasites as well. As much as there's amoeba in water, but stuff like hookworms and not Escherichia coli, but I think is
E. coli
Inanna and these
general,
things,
staph.
right? So human beings carry these things, and through fecal contamination, you know, it can be passed on food. So that's why I was asking if parasites can be considered as biological hazards
So
with regards
worms
to
are
food
not
safety.
considered a foodborne illness. So because in the food, it will not cause you to be sick. It won't produce a toxin. It's a disgusting factor. It might give you a blood disease or something else, but it's not considered a foodborne illness. It's not,
Okay.
it's probably a blood illness. Now, viruses like hepatitis, that is normally found on handlers, on hands. That definitely is a foodborne illness. Staph aureus is another foodborne illness that it's part of the flesh-eating disease. It can cause both foodborne illness
Prep.
as a toxin, or it can cause a non-foodborne illness, a blood illness, if you have an open sore and you get into your sore, and then that's like a flesh-eating bacteria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get septic and stuff like that.
And get
But
septic.
also, yeah.
Yeah.
The vector I was talking about is like rats, like you know, leptospirosis is so common and
Yes, those
rats
can,
can
again,
urinate.
it can cause foodborne illness because it can pass over your food, you know, and cause you to be sick. There was just this, this actor and his wife, they found dead in their house and nobody had gone and see them. And they found out is because of exactly that. They found rat droppings in their house. And the rat had the poison and they was over the food and they got contaminated and they both passed away. So yes, it's not so much of your food itself, but if it passes on things that you use to eat, it will cause you to be cause illness and if not treated, death. But good question. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. So let's go on to another one. Everybody say GMO good Genetically modified organism. Everybody has it and they're afraid of it. They think if you eat genetically modified food, it's going to give you an extra eye, an extra ear, your eyes is going to get big. So I personally believe that genetically modified food was given a bad rap because everybody thinks that we are taking food in the lab and generating, manipulating the genetics of it and creating an alpha animal. But genetically modified food is basically grafting, and we do grafting all over the place. GMO is a version of grafting, but you are manipulating it in the lab to create a more controlled environment and to create a more specific, more direct sample. Now, we'll go a little bit about that. Now, genetically modified organism, like I said, it's a plant, animal, or microorganism that has had its genetic material changed. How? It generally involves the specific modification of DNA, including the transferring the specific DNA from one organism to the other. This is what we do when we do crossbreeding, right? We don't know what it is, it's not scientific, but when we crossbreed, which we do a lot of, or we used to, like crossbreed our roses or our food, that's what's happening. They use genetic techniques. Most of the foods in your local supermarket contain GMO, unless if you're in England, England doesn't use any GMO ingredients or buy any GMO ingredients. They are easier, more cost-effective for farmers, which make them cheaper for the consumer. Growing GMO techniques include corn, soybean, canola, sugar beets, alpha cotton, potatoes, papaya, pink pineapples, summer squash, and a new variety of apples. So those are some of the genetically modified foods. So I know, are they safe? According to the WHO, there's no effect on human health that has been shown as a result of the consumption of genetically modified foods by the general population. So we have to be careful. Recently, our health secretary said that Tylenol is creating autism. No scientific proof behind that, but it's out there and people believe it. We have to have the science behind it. So general crossbreeding takes longer. It's more difficult to determine which genetic change will lead to a new trait. Whereas the current research suggests that GMO foods are safe for consumption. Some people are concerned about the potential health effect, but there's no long-term research that shows that. Now, I'll give you a thing about, did I put a slide in there? No. So in GMO, so if you have a bacteria that they use in corn, so that bacteria has shown to be resistant to a certain infestation. So what they've done is taken that bacteria in the lab, use that DNA that is resistant to that specific pest, and then incorporate that DNA, grow it up in the lab outside of the bacteria, and then put it in the food so that that gene will render the food with the same capability that that microorganism possess. So you're taking something that's in nature that you have identified, you crossbreeding it, growing it, and then incorporating it back into a plant. I make it sound simple, it's not simple. And yes, it's manufactured and added to food, but it starts off as naturally occurring. I'll do the other one first and then we'll stop. Gluten-free. Now, everybody wants to have gluten-free, GMO-free, and all those others. But what is gluten? Gluten is a protein that you find in wheat plant and some other grains. It's naturally occurring, but it can be extracted and concentrated and added to food and other products to add protein texture and flavor. Now, gluten is a real issue because people who have true gluten sensitivity, and one of my nephews, his mom is a vegan, and they didn't know why he was getting sick, but because he had celiac. So protease is the enzyme that helps our body process protein, but it can't completely break down gluten. So undigested gluten makes its way into the small intestine, and most people can handle the undigested gluten with no problem. But in some people, it can trigger a severe autoimmune response. And you'll hear people say when they eat gluten, they feel bloated because it's not digesting that part of the protein. And that is a real disease. It's called celiac disease. Over time, this reaction damages the small intestine, which is what was happening to my nephew. He was getting severely sick, but nobody knew why. It caused diarrhea, fatigue, and weight loss and bloating. The problem with gluten, because it became a designer thing, everybody wants to eat gluten, is that the people who truly are celiac disease patients are having a problem because now everybody wants gluten-free food and there's no distinction between it. So he's finding it really hard to be able to purchase food that's gluten-free, truly gluten-free, because even people who don't even know what it is will slap a gluten label on it. So whereas gluten is a real problem, but not everybody is a celiac patient. It's a very small percentage of the population. Now, if you choose to make gluten-free product or GMO-free product, you have to treat it like an allergen. And you have to be very careful with your labeling and your cross-contamination. You cannot, if you use the same equipment, you must ensure that the equipment can be clean. I will tell you, if you have old equipment, it's impossible to clean it. We'd had a line where we tried for years to get it to be gluten-free, but we kept getting residual amount because the line was not designed to be wet clean. And the only way you can get the gluten out is through wet cleaning. So if you want to label your food for gluten-free, GMO-free, you have to treat it the same way you will treat an allergen. Some people will have dedicated lines and dedicated factories where you're not allowed to bring any wheat in the factory, any peanuts or anything like that, to be able to guarantee that you have a GMO-free or gluten-free product. Okay, questions on gluten and GMO or anything we talked about? Or
Alrighty.
what?
Okay, we do have a few questions in the question and answer segment, as well as some comments in the chat. Sanja, well, let me start with Leonie first. Leonie asks, what is the advantage of seedless watermelon and lemons? Is this an example of grafting? I'm not
Yes,
sure.
you can create grafting and create seedless watermelon and seedless lemon. The basic advantage is you don't have to strain the seeds out of your food. It's basically laziness.
Mm-hmm.
that you don't want to have to take the seeds out, and you want to just eat your watermelon, or not have to strain the seeds from your thing. There's no scientific or medical advantage. It's convenience.
Yep, definitely. Sanja says, as a child, there was food stuff, especially sweet, which were carried to the cannery dump. Okay, this is a question from St. Kitts. Cannery dump is the central dumping area for St. Kitts. So she said food from places like Rams. Rams is a major supermarket in St. Kitts as well as distributor. So from places like Ram Supermarket, people would take them and share them with friends and family. I myself would have consumed sweets. I am now understanding the danger that I was exposed to. Thanks for the knowledge.
Thank you. And it's not just you. I think we didn't know what we were doing. And some of the things that help us, I think, like I talked about that, you build a resistance, right? So it's like malaria. If you go to a country where it's malaria, you have herd immunity, and most people don't suffer from it. If you go there by yourself, then you get sick. I think there's some kind of herd immunity because we've consumed stuff and our microflora can stand it. Like I said, I would get sick the minute I smell the food because I know too much, and so I don't eat a lot. So the disadvantage is my microflora is very weak. So going out there and buying the foods, even in the supermarket, when we put food on that's expired and we sell it for a cheaper price, can be risky. Because we mix it, we don't have, like when we worked in Africa and we used to get cereal, and if the cereal was contaminated because our environmental monitoring said that the plant had salmonella, we would have to throw out millions of pounds of food, which was hard because those same people who are working in the factory don't have money to go and feed their food, their children. And here we are destroying all this food. So you'd see them taking the food and going with it and taking a chance. As a result of that, we are required to have somebody sit down and watch the destruction of the food and document every package that's destroyed. So you have one hand where the food is contaminated, and not all of it might be, but as a company, you have to recall it and destroy it. And then you have people who are starving and they have to make a decision. Do I feed my kid with this food and take a chance, or do I get sick? So it's very, very, very difficult situation.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now,
We have,
GMO is an answer to being able to feed our the ever-growing population. Because if you have GMO-free food, you can grow more food that's more pest resistant. So for me personally, would I much rather eat food that's been genetically modified versus starve? I would eat food that's been genetically modified. It's a balance.
agreed. Agreed. And
Yeah.
I'm a nutritionist, so
Yeah,
yeah. So we'll now have a question from the participant. Teresa, you may unmute your mic.
Hi. I
Hi,
was just saying,
Teresa.
just before you say you're a nutritionist, I say, you know what? I think after that Helen course, I will go on to be a nutritionist, and I hear you saying you are one, you know. But um, I am gluten intolerant,
Yeah.
and I when I was much younger, I loved tuna fish and bread. So I always thought it was the tuna fish in the tin that used to give me all those hives and stuff. So I stopped eating tuna fish. But the thing is still there. not until I become, let me say, how old was I? I think I was in my 30s. I had to do an allergy test.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized it's the bread,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
And I'm like, wow.
And it's
So,
it's a real thing. Celiac disease is real. In some people, it's
yeah,
more aggressive. Others, you just feel bloated.
yeah.
But like my
But with that
nephew,
one, when I eat it, my my liver area on the
mm-hmm,
side would itch me.
mm-hmm,
My leg, oh, my lap would itch me. How bad? And I'm like, wow, but and I have to be drinking water, like maybe how many bottles of water just to be able to stop.
yeah,
So now, because of all that, and it's not a nice itch, it just have you. So I've decided, okay, I need to try other things and stuff. So I came on, I got spelt flour. I test all the different flours and I realized spelt flour, that it worked very well for me.
yeah,
But one time I went to the supermarket and I didn't have at the other place I used to buy. So I went to the supermarket at Massey. And because it's spelt flour, I don't even know how. I normally read my ingredients, but I don't know how I did not read that one. And
yeah.
lo and behold, when I finished making the bread, I eat my bread and like my body itching and like, but I spelled flour. Took the bag and I realized when I read it, I realized they added it came from England, wheat rose. That's a wheat rose product, so that's an English product. They added wheat with the spelled flour, and you're not supposed to add no other thing with spelled flour. Spelled flour is really a
Yeah.
flour
So
that don't
that
have no
was
gluten.
a product adulteration then.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
add a wheat with it, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So
So that was
I
an
went to the
example of
States and
adulterated
then
product.
yeah, I was in the States and I saw a lot of products without it says gluten free. So I tried one in each and lo and behold, it was good because it doesn't trouble me, then I know it's real gluten free. So I'm
Yeah.
like, it's a bad thing because it's like, oh my goodness, it's I don't know how to explain it, but
It's a
it's
bad
bad.
thing in that the people that truly have the gluten-free food, because everybody's slapping gluten on everything,
Hmm.
they have a problem because they can't find real gluten-free food, right?
Yes.
And you'll ask a lot of people that say, "Oh, I need to eat gluten-free." They don't even know what gluten is.
Yeah.
But
And
then
that's why
it's the new designer term, so I have to eat gluten-free. But the people that really have it, celiac is a real problem.
yes. So
Okay?
for me, yes, for me, that's why I say you made me even afraid of eating food out there. For me, I will I have to cook my own food because okay, I'm going out there to buy. I want to buy a piece of fried fish. They will use their white flour to fry the fish because the person will not go and buy an expensive flour like whole that I buy in a spell for almost $20 for 2 pounds. You will
Yeah,
not go and buy that to just fry fish for somebody. So they will
yeah,
normally use the white flour. So definitely somebody like me must always cook for myself. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So it is so important that when we know what people are allergic to now. I had a restaurant for 7 years. So
Teresa,
yeah,
can you wrap up because we are approaching 8 o'clock
Yeah.
yes.
and there
So
are
I'm
a few
saying
more
that I had
persons
to
who would like
make
to ask a
yeah.
questions.
So I'm saying I had to make sure that I had to cater for everybody and my food had to be
Yep.
cooked differently from everybody so that people don't get
So the end of it is
allergies.
knowing ourselves and being
Yeah,
aware.
yeah.
Yes,
So,
being aware.
so Latoya, I just see a question I can pick up before you go. And maybe you get this one. This one is from Miss Campbell. Can GMO food alter our DNA eventually? There's no proven data for all of these years that says it will alter your DNA because it's already incorporated in the food and it's already built into it. So it's not multiplying your DNA, it's not interfering with your DNA. Now, eventually, there's no data, and again, all you have to do is science. Science says there's nothing there at this time. They've studied and everything, but nothing at this time.
Yes, and there's another one. Let me add this to a question too. Melinda asks, is there a decrease in nutrition with food modifications? For example, the seedless fruits. Yes, it's convenient not to deal with seeds, but is the nutritional value still there?
I really don't know the answer to that, but most of the time when the food is modified, the nutritional content stays the same.
Stays
But
the
you
same.
ask a good question because the seeds serve a purpose. And what they are contributing to the food, I don't know. So I cannot answer that question for you. You'd have to get a nutritionist like Latoya to give you a more scientific answer to that.
Well, from what we know, most of the plants each serve its purpose, and unless the individual in particular use seeds for something food-wise, then it's not a problem. But the nutrition benefits from the foods, the carbohydrates, the sugars from the watermelon, it still remains the same.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Another question on GMO food. Again, like I said, the GMO question, it's
Oh
like
my
our
God.
president saying the Tylenol causes autism. So somebody goes out there with it and they don't understand it, and that news gets out there. So there is no documented case of GMO causing cancer.
Mhm.
Now, there's people that believe it and think that they have it and they worry about it and conspiracy, but scientifically, it has not been proven to be linked to any kind of cancer.
No. But
So,
before we continue the presentation, we'll allow one more question from the participants.
mhm.
Jike Joseph, you may unmute your mic.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
As it pertains to GMO foods again, I'm not sure about altering the DNA, but what I have learned is that these foods, everyone is built differently. And some of these foods, what they do is that they inject especially the animals with medication, and sometimes we eat these foods, get sick, and the medicine that is supposed to heal us it has no effect on our body. How true is that?
Very false. Now, you're talking about two different things. So I think you're talking about eating animals that's being injected with some kind of growth hormone or something, right?
No, genetically modified, even with the plants. Even with the plants.
Yeah,
That is why they say that all foods that are genetically modified must be labeled.
yes, that
So
is not
consumers
why
will
they're
have a
saying that.
choice.
That is not why they're saying that, because if you're gonna genetically modified foods, you can't just create a genetically modified food and give it to people. It's
Mm-hmm.
transparency. You have to label it, right? Just like if you have to
Uh-huh.
label the thing that has peanuts. So if you're gonna genetically modify food because it's not naturally occurring, it must be labeled. Now, again, unless you have scientific data, and
Uh-huh.
there is no scientific data at this time linking what you talked about and genetically modified foods.
Yes, and as it relates to animals, GMO animals, the very few species that they have, they're actually not used for food.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they are usually used for research, and some of them, I think, for medicinal purposes, but they got you strict regulation and testing before they even do
Yeah,
that. So
and
we don't have
that's a good
GMO animals
question.
used for foods.
And like I said, I list a list of what's out there that's genetically modified. It's out there, but there's a lot of things going on. Like, they gave a man a pig liver, a pig heart or something, because he was on the transplant list. They transferred a pig heart into him, and he stayed with it for a couple of months. They just had to remove it because he rejected it. So there's a lot of scientific things that makes us open our eyes, but innovation is happening, and we have to be aware, educate ourselves. Do not go with hearsay. Get the science, get the information, and don't be part of the ones because you hear it. Educate yourself, find out the truth, and make an informed decision.
Thank you. And for that individual who asked about the value on sheet, the poll, thank you so much, because the conversation actually made me forget about launching the poll. It's now up, guys. So please, kindly remember to go to the poll and evaluate this session. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now the other thing I wanted to, this was the main topic. So those were bonus topics I gave you guys, because I know it's so much. It has nothing to do with microbial food safety, but it's a bonus because it's linked to food safety. So, if I can get this to move. So AI is another big conspiracy theory that's out there. Internet of Things technologies in food safety and agriculture, right? So AI is, I know everybody on the line has heard some version of AI, and there's AI in your world you don't even know about it. I got my mother an Alexa for her house, and she swears that Alexa is minding her business. So one day she called me and she's whispering. I say, why are you whispering? Oh, because Alexa is listening to me and she's taking my discussion and going other places with it. Which is not what was happening. Alexa was using AI, and then if she's normally looking for one station before she goes in, Alexa will tell her, hey, your station is here. Or if I'm in my car and I go out every day to a certain place, if I have my phone, I get there, the car automatically knows that I'm going to that place. So this is all AI. It's happening, it's there, we can be afraid of it. It's being developed more, but it's in all our lives right now. So the question is, how can we use AI and Internet of Things in food safety? Now, Internet of Things is if you have your house phone is linked to your television, it links into your house, it tells you what time you're coming home and what time to put the coffee on, all of those are Internet of Things, and they talk to each other. So how can we use AI and look at what the advantages are for us as agriculture? Now, this is just a brief topic to introduce you to AI because it's here. So this is a list, and I'm not going through all of it for your information on what is AI versus Internet of Things. So AI, again, it's creation of machine that can perform tasks requiring human-like cognitive abilities. And Internet of Things, it's all about connecting everything together. So in the factory, one way they use Internet of Things is if you go on the line will be able to tell you, okay, this line is breaking down. You have a backup this way and bring it back to the office. So you can see all the connections that's happening in the factory without having to go through each site separately. So AI in food safety, you can use it to predict predictive analysis, and you use machine learning. So imagine if you can look at your line and you know at any given time, based on the data you get, based on the buildup, based on the food type, based on the line speed, you'll know exactly when it's time to clean before you get a problem. Or it can tell you when it's time to change a metal line or a screen. So those are how you can predict. So you can say, okay, when I get how my line was running today in the factory, as the quality manager, I can decide how to run the line, how many people to put on the line. That's one way to do it. So you're predicting what will happen before it happens. It also can be used for monitoring. So you use sensors and drones for real-time monitoring of crop and livestock. And it's really good for traceability. So they have this thing called blockchain technology, which is combined with AI for tracking food products from farm to table. Now, for this to work, everybody has to put the information. So if Teresa is growing oranges and sending it to me out here, so Teresa will have to put in everything about her orange, and then it will go through another transport. That person will track it. So when I get the finished product in my hand, if there's a recall, Teresa will know where every single part of that food that she sent to me was just by the code I have on that food. So that's one way that they are using blockchain technology with AI. It sounds like magic, but it's really happening. We talked about how they're using it in agriculture. It's monitoring soil condition, automation of irrigation, tracking weather condition. It also monitors animal health and plant growth. So here's an example of blockchain. So it goes from supply chain to the manufacturer, to the distributor, to the retailer, to the consumer. So you can see and get visibility if you have a problem, not only for food safety, but somebody talked about plastic rice. So the supplier, you can manufacture and find out what's happening to that rice. Again, we talked about drones. You use aerial drones right now to look at the image of the food, where you're having a problem. If you're having a pest issue, if you have animals issue, the drones are used right now in farming. We talked about the Internet of Things. You connect your soil, your machine, your water, your weather, your crop, and people can sit down and give you a design. It's just like they are monitoring the hurricanes right now, unfortunately. The same thing happens, the same technology can be used in farming to give you better crop monitoring and allow you to be able to determine issues before they happen. So it's more about predictability. So I have a video, Latoya, that summarizes all that. It's now 8:03. It's I think a 10-minute video. I can skip it and let everybody watch it on their own if they want to. It just summarizes what's happening. And we can take questions and close out because I know your time is critical and I want to keep the time for it. So it's now 8:03.
Okay, that is fine. So just share. When I receive the link, I'll share it in the chat. As a matter of fact, I'll see if I can paste it from here. But we
Yeah.
have two questions in the question and answer segment. One question is it best to sanitize with Clorox only, or hot water can be added to it?
Okay, both. So you can, like if you're using water, it's better to use hot water versus cold water with the Clorox. It can be effective, but the hot water, it's more effective to activate the chemicals. So the answer is hot water is always better.
Okay, and one more of this. This is the final one out of the question and answer, and then I'll go over to the chat. And if anybody have any other question, comments, concern, please feel free to raise your hands. Is gluten organic?
Gluten is not organic. You have to grow it organically if you want it to be organic, but they're very different. If you want a gluten product, so remember gluten is wheat, right? It's found in wheat. If you want the wheat to be organic, then you have to follow all the requirements of making it organic. That makes sense? But mostly it's too complicated, so they keep them separate.
Okay, we have one hand up.
Yeah.
1 second. Okay, you may unmute your mic. Think that was GK.
Yes. Good night again. Sorry, I dropped out. Didn't get to finish ask the question. When it comes to organic foods, would you consider GMO organic? And what are the processes to track organic foods produced in the Caribbean? I know some farmers use manure, and the manure they use, what the animals are being fed are processed food. So would that manure still be considered organic?
So I'll take that part, that's the easy part. No. I okay, so I don't know of, maybe you guys know of food that truly will get organic certification in the Caribbean because of all of the difficult requirements. And again, in the Caribbean, you can't ask for more money for your food. It's very expensive to make organic food. In the US, you will pay organic lettuce almost a 20% markup for non-organic. You can't, nobody will buy that for you in the Caribbean. Oh, I don't think. So no, there is nobody monitoring organic. Anybody can do whatever they want. There's no organic certification. There's no regulation that I'm aware of. However, if you want to sell organic food to the US or to Europe, you have to have the certification and meet all the requirements. So that's one
What I know
answer.
about the
What?
What I know about the certification, we here in the Caribbean do have certification. There are extension officers go out to the farms, and before they can give you the certificate that says your farm is an organic farm, there are some checks and balances that they do before they certify farms and give them that organic title.
Are they doing the seeds and the 3-year for
Seeds
organic
and
free?
trees, yes, along with considering other nearby farmers who use
Oh, okay. Where in
inorganic
the
things as
Caribbean do
well.
they have that? That's good to know.
All over the Caribbean, right here in St. Kitts as well, we practice it.
Okay, that's good. And you get a label to put on your food
Yes,
that
you get
says
a label.
approved organic.
Yes, and
That's very good
what
to
they
know because I have
produce
not found it.
organically, it always sells for more. I know of the Gideon Farm that is located in Old Road.
Is that
They
Mackie's farm?
produce Gideon Farm.
Okay.
They produce organic goods. I know
Mm-hmm.
that they also sell the seeds, which are not genetically modified, to those larger companies, and persons go there and purchase them, and their seeds are more expensive than the seeds that are
Yeah.
imported by the company.
Well, that's really good to know. I'm very happy to hear that because I haven't found it. And kudos to those who can truly do that. I'm happy to hear
Yes,
that.
my second question is though,
No.
when persons use manure from animal, knowing that they feed their animal processed food, would their food still be considered organic?
So again, that's a difficult one to answer. If they are feeding the food non-organic food and that manure is part of that, then they cannot call it organic.
Organic.
And I'm hoping that's what the ones in the Caribbean that they are calling that out.
Yes,
Okay.
because a lot of them depend on poultry manure,
Yeah.
mainly from the common fowls, and they do feed them processed feed.
So
So
then that
that would
would
kind of,
negate
yes,
you from being called organic. Organic
yes,
is so tricky for you to be able to
it
get it.
is.
And then you don't get the benefit from it from a
It
dollar
is.
standpoint. And
It
the other
is.
part of your question was, can GMO food, genetically modified organism, be organic? And the answer is no, because of the way it's processed.
Just by saying that as well, when using these seeds, the wind and other agents transfer the pollen, and pollen go very far, and they may pollinate other plants as well.
Yeah, so all of that you have to be careful of where your farm is, your overhead, everything.
Yes.
It takes a long, 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 arduous process to be considered organic.
Yes. When it comes to the use of manure from cattle, normally if you put the wet manure around the plant, it will kill it because it's too harsh.
The
What
raw
they
manure,
do,
yes.
yes, what they do, they allow it to dry first. They
And
allow it
it
to
has two
dry.
good things. It allows it to
Yes,
dry and it also allow it to cure, so the
yes.
bacteria is dead. So that's
And while drying, they do not allow it to get wet, as getting wet seems to, well, tends to wash some of the nutrients out of it.
also, it can create a growth potential for bacteria.
Yes, that was my next question.
Yes.
When they place the dry ones around the plant, does the bacteria enter into the plant via the root nodules?
If it's properly cured, then the spores and everything has been killed.
Okay. All right. Thank you
But
so
if it's
much.
improperly cured and you have spores, then it will germinate.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good questions.
Okay. So we have one final question in the question and answer segment. What's the difference between GMO and hybrid food?
One is in the lab and one is natural. You know, when you cross hybrid, you're doing it, you're not taking DNA, you're just taking actual plants, I think. And GMO, you're actually extracting the DNA from the organism, manipulating it and adding it to something else. So you're actually dealing with DNA material. And I think hybrid, you take in the pieces, you're not using DNA, but I'm not too sure about that part. If somebody knows, let me know. But my understanding is one is using DNA in the lab, the other one you can crossbreed it without using the DNA. And then what you get, you cannot also determine exactly what hybrid you will get. In the GMO one, you know exactly what you're going to get.
Well, it looks like we have no more questions.
Okay, well, ladies, it was my pleasure to create awareness for you as part of Helen's Daughters, as part of farmers, that each and every one of you have empowered yourself to create a food safety culture for you, for your community. And like I said, if you have questions or you need some help, you can reach out to Latoya and she will get it to me and I will give you some free consulting as much as I can for anything that we've discussed in there. I've done that for a few people. Yeah. So if you guys want to do that, go through Latoya. Latoya, that's good, right? To you?
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then just thank you again. Hopefully, we look at food differently and we create the culture and one person teach another one. And as you build your farm, think about food safety as a competitive advantage for you, for your business, when you do your business plan, when you do your monitoring, and when you go for loans, don't forget to add your food safety plan as a competitive advantage. So thanks again. And LaToya, thank you for always being on top of things and being a fantastic facilitator.
Thank you very much. Before I close, kindly remember there is a poll in the chat. It was put up a little late, so please try and complete it. Additionally, I've placed the YouTube link inside of the general Ag-cademy chat.
Great.
So I
Thank you.
really want to thank everyone for joining us again this evening.